Nintendo's financials have finally dropped, and we have information about the sales numbers for about every single major Nintendo first-party release, alongside all the million sellers, which I think we'll go through that list as well because I find it to be pretty interesting. We also got some confirmation about the future of Nintendo, which is super huge, and backwards compatibility is confirmed to be a thing, so we'll get into that as well. At this point, the Nintendo Switch has sold 146 million units, which is huge and so cool. We're going to talk about if it can reach the heights of the PlayStation 2 and all of what these numbers could mean for the future. So let's get into analyzing these numbers. This slideshow that I have, this thing right here, is basically going through all of Nintendo's financials, and this is what they present to their investors, essentially. So this is from their investor meeting. We see here that this year, the Nintendo Switch has sold quite a bit less than what we were anticipating, right? They have sold at this point 6.84 million units, and they were projected at this time to sell around 12 million, so they've fallen flat a little bit, but they are hoping to recoup that and sell another 4.27 mil in the coming months. Sold quite a bit of software as well. Let's talk about the Nintendo Switch and what's happening right now, right? So let's get into this first. 146 million units sold, which is a ton, and 1.3 billion units. That is pretty massive, chat. That's pretty big. Now, obviously, it's fallen flat in a couple ways, but I think that there are ways to recoup it, and this is just how things work. As the system is going to get older, it's going to age, it's going to sell less, and they haven't done any drastic price cuts or anything like that. So I think, have they done that? Maybe they could have hit that forecasted number, but since we've stayed tried and true at those original prices, unfortunately, we aren't seeing any super explosive growth at this moment. But this is just, par for the course for what's happening with the Nintendo Switch. I mean, honestly, out of all of these things over here, out of all of these sales, how many people have double dipped, right? I have 2 Nintendo Switches. A lot of people have their original one and their second one. And so at this point, I really feel like it's people picking up those collector systems, which is cool. But it's like, Nintendo, if you want this to really lock it in and be a whole thing, you gotta price cut it. You just have to. Now they talk about the Nintendo Switch users. So out of all of those people who bought a Switch, 127 million have basically logged in within the last year. That's a pretty healthy base of people, honestly, so I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's a great way to go. The Switch, out of every console, has probably had the most healthy lineup to keep people interested. The Wii was exciting for a while. It sold incredibly well, and then it kind of fell off of a cliff because it wasn't exciting for these people who had had it forever, right? The Switch continues to bring really great games for hardcore fans in a lot of ways, I would say, and also, while their casual efforts have died off a little bit, they've stayed pretty strong throughout the whole life cycle, except for this last year, essentially. And these are the titles that they've announced for 2025, which I think is pretty cool, obviously, just to see everything all together here. The ones to note, obviously, are going to be Pokemon ZA, Donkey Kong Returns HD, Xenoblade Chronicles X, and Metroid Prime Beyond. Many new titles are planned to be released next year as well. These games shown here have been announced for release in 2025. So what we can see here is that everything, including Metroid Prime, is listed as coming out in 2025, which is really exciting. So hopefully we can look forward to that game coming out next year, unless for some reason it gets, delayed. I always find these kind of interesting because it shows you every first-party effort, I guess. Here, I'll zoom out here so you guys can see that better. Every first-party effort that Nintendo has put out. So it's pretty cool. In these consumer touchpoints, they like to talk about Nintendo Switch Online, which has over 36 million members, which is pretty successful, I would say, and pretty cool. I've honestly come around on that service. I think it's a pretty great value. I think if you like older games, you know what I mean? Phenomenal. Because you can just do it. You can just play them. It's pretty sick. They just came out with Nintendo Music. I've been screwing around with it a little bit, and I think it's cool. I'm not the biggest video game music person, but I like listening to my little Wii soundtracks in there. And it's free, so I mean that's always a great thing. If you already have the service, obviously. So this is where they talk about all those kinds of stuff. Nothing too crazy here. This is them basically just selling. Hey, we're doing good stuff. Trust us. Don't worry about it. So this is where they talk about expanding Nintendo IP and that kind of vibe. what we can see is some sales numbers, which I do appreciate. So we can see all the Mario related stuff obviously sells immeasurably well. Those are the combined sales for Bowser's Fury and Odyssey, both selling around 20 million. Obviously Mario Kart sitting at 68 million or 64 million units is insane. And we can see actually later when we get into this, because I've already skimmed through it, Mario Kart in this, fiscal year alone has sold 2.8 million units, which is kind of just wild. All these 2D Marios, 41 million units. Wonder, I believe, is sitting at a solid 15 million, which is great. And the Mario parties are selling great, so that's exciting as well. These are their high ticket, these are the things that are selling incredibly well for the most part. Animal Crossing, of course, 46 million units. Smash Bros is great. I didn't realize it was that high. That's awesome to see. If you combine the sales of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you get 53 million units, which is ridiculous. Breath of the Wild, I believe, is standing at a solid basically 30 million, and Tears of the Kingdom is essentially sitting at like a 19 million, give or take. That probably doesn't math out perfectly, but those are around the numbers that we're looking at. And Splatoon 2 and 3 are both incredibly good games. Splatoon 3, I believe, is at 11 million now, which is super cool. Pokemon series has sold incredibly well across of everything. Obviously, Scarlet and Violet killed it. They set brand new records and went crazy. Arceus is probably the best game here. Sword and Shield, for some reason, went fucking crazy and sold really well. But all of these games have they've sold so much. One of my favorite things to see, though, is this graph, because we can see these sort of franchises that aren't as well known and how they did on, like the Wii U as compared to the Switch, which I really love. So Pikmin, at this point, with all 4 games on the Nintendo Switch, has sold 7.86 million units, which is super cool. Kirby is going crazy at 15.8 million units as well. Kirby and the Forgotten Land was such a freaking good game. That is really spiking those numbers up, because that sold very well, which is amazing, because that's where they should keep going with the franchise. Metroid at a 4.99 is really cool. It's almost at 5 million. And I'm sure it'll crack it, because Dread has finally hit 3 million, and then Prime Remastered is at 2 million, which is funny, because I wonder how many of those is because people double dipped. Like, I literally bought the cartridge, but I also, bought it digitally, like when it initially came out. So I just wonder how much those numbers are inflated. I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm just curious. Xenoblade Chronicles, is cool to see that they've been selling as well as they have. Those games are really good. They're not something that I totally love, because they take so long to beat, but if you want value out of a game, they're phenomenal. I've never beaten one, which I hate to admit. I always play them, I always like them, and then I fall off. But Xenoblade Chronicles X was just announced, which is super cool, so I'm looking forward to seeing that on the Switch as well, and then we'll have every major Xenoblade game, so there's some really, really cool stuff here, and obviously you can see it's, like just pounding what the Wii U had. I mean, the Wii U and the 3DS were absolutely nothing compared to what the Switch is selling, so that's awesome to see. Improvement. This is where they talk about, like, the future of Nintendo and some things outside of, video games. Obviously, we had the Super Mario movie, which sold over 1 billion and did super duper well, which is phenomenal, so they confirmed a second one will be coming out in about 2 years at this point. We can also see over here The Legend of Zelda, which is being developed and planned currently, and it's confirmed to be a live-action Zelda film. I would love to see Tom Holland in there. He's a chiller. He could be Zelda adjacent. Timothée Chalamet is a pretty good choice as well. So we will see. It's an exciting thing. I think a live action could be really cool. I'm a little sad that we didn't get a Studio Ghibli movie. But what can you do? Maybe it's going to be the next Lord of the Rings. Theme parks, they talk about Super Nintendo World, how they're expanding all over. They've got Hollywood, Orlando, Osaka, Singapore, TBD, which is sweet. Orlando one looks pretty cool, and they're kind of just like going crazy with it. They've got all their mobile apps, which is great. I mean, 920 million downloads is incredibly impressive. I cannot believe they fucking stopped supporting Dr. Mario. That's the only one of their apps I really ever played, except for Super Mario Run. I love that shit, and then they stopped supporting it, which is fucked up. Now they have all these things like the museum, which was pretty cool, and we saw that direct earlier this year. And they're just sort of expanding who has access to the Nintendo IP and all that kind of stuff, which is fun. Now, this is the most exciting part of this, is the future outlook, integrated hardware software successor to the Nintendo Switch. Now, this is where we get into the fun stuff. Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on the successor to the Nintendo Switch. This is the smartest thing you can announce, because this means that people can continue to buy their games for the Nintendo Switch without fear of not being able to play them on the next system. So they announced this right now so that you buy all these games without fear of being like, well, I'm buying this now with the investment now of never being able to play it again. That is inaccurate, because now we have this baddie, which is super, super cool and super exciting. I was a big believer that was always going to happen, just because I think, like, if you look at the history of Nintendo, and especially Nintendo handhelds, most of the time, they are backwards compatible, unless it, like, switches mediums, right? So, going from N64 to GameCube, that's cartridge to disc, probably not. Going to Wii U to Switch, cartridge to disc, probably not. But almost every other system within there has been backwards compatible, since that was, like, a major thing. So, I love to see it. I'm excited. Very, very happy about that. That's a great thing to confirm. I'm excited to get some more information about the next console. You know, seeing these more concrete stuff has been awesome, and so I just hope that continues. On Election Day, right? Probably one of the most stressful days for anyone ever. On Election Day, Nintendo goes to Twitter, and they hit us with their iconic, "This is for a Karwa." At today's corporate management policy briefing, we announced that Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on the successor to Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch Online will be available on the Nintendo Switch as well. Further information on the successor to the Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch, will be announced at a later date. Oh my god, I'm gonna sneeze. Oh, my eyes are watering. Oh, okay. Damn it, I shouldn't have announced it. Now I jinxed myself. No, I'm just gonna... So, that's what we got, which is pretty sick. Love to see it. Everybody's excited, which is great. It's very, very cool. Alright, this page here is every Nintendo Switch title that has sold over 1 million, which is pretty sick. So, it's pretty far away, obviously, but we can zoom in for everybody. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe still selling so effing well at this point is ridiculous. We are at 1 million just this quarter. This fiscal year, we are at 2 million. And then Animal Crossing New Horizons continues to sell as well at 46 million. Super exciting. Smash Bros. Ultimate. We saw a lot of these numbers when we were looking at the slideshow from earlier. But something that I think is super cool is how high up Ring Fit Adventure is. That baddie is sitting at a solid 15 million. And also, let's talk about how high New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe is. Ridiculous. Literally ridiculous. And Switch Sports continues to sell as well, selling 1 million just this year alone, and at 14 million now, which is so crazy because they fucking screwed up that game. They gotta lock in and do better. They gotta lock in and do a lot better next time, chat. So when we keep going down the thing, we get we see Pikmin 4, which is awesome, at 3.4 million. I love to see stuff like that. I think it just... You know, it's great to see a franchise that you love so high up. ARMS at 2.7 mil for a new IP. That's awesome. Echoes of Wisdom, we can see here it sold 2.5 mil, which is not as much as some people wanted, but I think it's really good for what a 2D Zelda is, and it hasn't had that much time to sell quite yet, so that number could always explode in the coming weeks and months. Pikmin 3 Deluxe is pretty high as well. No, new Pokemon Snap. Hey, I finally beat that game. At the bottom here, we can see Bayonetta 3 with 1 million, which is unfortunate because Bayonetta 1 and 2 have actually already sold better than it. But, you know, it is what it is. It's cool. Game Builder Garage and Mario vs. Donkey Kong being all the way up here is crazy because they're just budget games, so they didn't even need to sell that well. But I love to see everything cracking 1 million seller. Princess Peach Showtime up there is awesome. This is just me going over all of the interesting things out of the Nintendo Switch stuff that has happened over the last couple days. I think it's cool. You know, we've got some things ahead of us. Can the Nintendo Switch sell better than the PlayStation 2? It's going to have to price cut. There's some things that they need to start doing, but I think it's very possible, and I'd love to see what that could mean and how exciting that could be for the Nintendo company as a whole. It's awesome to see how many plans they have for the future and how excited they are about what's happening right now for the Switch, because think about it. This is probably the least exciting time possible, because we have nothing really to go on, but they're drip feeding us a little bit of information, and that is so exciting. So I can only imagine how hyped the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be. I know this is a lot of, Nintendo Switch 2 talk as of late for the last 2 weeks, and I'd apologize for that, but it's kind of fun, and this is all concrete stuff, you know what I mean? This is shit that Nintendo themselves is reporting. I always find it super interesting to see what's in these top million sellers, and all of these numbers are interesting to me, you know? And I figured, you know, you'd like to be filled in on them a little bit too. So let me know what you think about all of this down in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe, check out this video. It's a banger, it's a vibe, it's a good time. My hair is really long, I want to cut it. Also, maybe we go brown or black. I'm not effing with blonde right now.